Hi everyone, A Loving Soul here. Hope this video finds you well. As you might know, I love being able to play Hearthstone on a budget, and with the Descent of Dragons adventure Galakrond's Awakening finally being fully released, I thought it would be a good time to release a budget deck guide for the standard format. Let's go over the ground rules. As usual, none of these decks have epics or legendaries in them, but I've added a new rule. They also don't require you to have any access to adventure cards, as adventures can really feel out of reach for budget players. Don't worry, I got you guys covered. Second, these decks are really cheap, but also powerful for their cost. They're all under 1800 dust. Third, these decks can be easily upgraded, and I'll go over the priority of cards you'll want to upgrade if you really enjoy playing these budget versions. Let's get into it. Let's start off with our Token Treant Druid deck coming in at 1760 dust. Token Druid is a classic archetype as old as Hearthstone itself. But this time around, we're showcasing Token Druid with a Treant flavor. So our two main themes are going to be our Treant synergies and AoE buffs like the classic Savage Roar and Power of the Wild that really capitalize on the wide boards we'll be generating. Let's go over the stars of the show. The Treants! We have good old cards like Shrubadier, a star in the early game, a 2-mana 1/1 that has the battle cry of summoning a Treant. Next, we have our late game bomb, the Control Killer, the Forest Aid, an 8-mana spell that reloads the board with 5 Treants, but wait, there's more! It also has the twin spell text, which means when you cast it the first time, you'll get a second copy. So just in case that pesky control deck clears your first Forest Aid, hit them with the second one. Last but not least, we have Garden Gnome. If you have a spell that costs 5 or more mana in your hand, this 4-mana 2/3 will summon 2 Treants to the board. It just so happens that at 8 mana, the Forest Aid fits just the bill for the Garden Gnome. So we got some Treants, but where's the payoff? Good thing you asked. Druid has access to some great Treant synergies. First, Aeroponics is an amazing card. But 5 mana to draw 2 cards? That doesn't sound that great. But wait, it gets discounted by 2 mana for each Treant you have on the board. This card easily gets down to 1 or even 0 mana, giving the fuel that the deck needs to either find AoE buffs or more board refill to keep the pressure up. Next, we have Mulch Muncher, an 8/8 with Rush. He starts at 9 mana, but he gets cheaper for each Treant that dies over the course of the game. Typically, you'll be casting this guy around 2 to 3 mana. Dendrologist is an old favorite of mine with his classic play sound, "Where my trees at?" He's a great tool to discover cards to close out the game. Imagine getting another copy of Savage Roar or the Forest Aid. Pretty juicy, right? So that's Token Treant Druid in a nutshell. Build wide boards of Treants, buff them up, and turn your opponents into mulch. If you find that you really enjoy playing Token Druid and you want to invest more into the deck, here's some upgrade options. Having more Treants is obviously good, so Force of Nature is probably a good starting point. It also acts as an activator for Garden Gnome. Force of Nature also combos with Anubisat Defender, allowing us to develop a 0-mana 3/5 with Taunt, which can really help protect our boards of 2/2 Treants. Finally, we have the big tree himself, Goru. He's a 7-mana 5/10 with Taunt that gives a permanent buff of +1/+1 to our Treants for the rest of the game. He curves perfectly into a turn 8 the Forest Aid, which can really make a difficult to clear board of 3/3 Treants. Let's talk about the cheapest list in this video. We have Face Hunter at only 1080 dust. We've seen many iterations of Face Hunter over the years and the idea stays the same. We have tons of ways to deal direct face damage, and we can keep pumping out constant pressure with the Hunter hero power, Steady Shot, which deals 2 damage to the enemy hero. So what new tricks did Rexxar bring to the table in Descent of Dragons? Well, we have one of the most threatening 2-drops in the game right now, Face Stalker. We know we want to be hero powering. Face Stalker wards us when we cast our hero power by putting a random secret from our deck into play. That means we're getting either a free freezing trap or explosive trap, and that's great tempo. Besides that, we see some familiar faces dedicated to getting the enemy's health points to 0 as soon as possible. Cobalt Sandtroopers, a 2-mana 2/1 with Death Rattle of deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Not far off the mark, Wolf Rider charges in for 3 damage to the enemy's face. Old habits die hard, and Rexxar knows that face is indeed the place. Really like playing Face Hunter? So what are some possible upgrades for the deck? Turns out, not much, but Hunter did get access to a very powerful side quest and Toxic Reinforcements. For a measly 1 mana, we get another way to reward us for casting our hero power. After you cast Steady Shot a whopping 3 times, we get 3 Leper Gnomes. With their Death Rattle alone, that's 6 damage to the enemy hero. Oh, while we're at it, Leper Gnome turns out to be a pretty good 1-drop that you can consider playing in your deck over Blazing Battle Mage. Goblins and Gnomes. Goblins and Gnomes. Oh wait, wrong expansion. Here we have Descent of Dragon's take on Mech Paladin at 1640 dust. Mech decks nowadays are all about sticking together. Literally, through the magnetic text, which allows you to play magnetic mechs as a buff if you play them on the left side of a mech on the board, or you can play them as a standalone unit if you play the magnetic mech on the right side of a mech. This means your opponents will try their best to leave no mech behind because of the ever-looming threat of you magnetizing that war gear and promptly smashing them in the face with what once was a 1/1 Mecharoo turned full-size Gundam. We're taking advantage of some cool mech synergies. Gobbleglide techs a nifty 3 mana 4/4 with Rush if you happen to have a mech on the board. Or if you have a wide board and you just need a free fill of mechs, Skyclaw swoops in, summoning 2 1/1 microcopters while also providing a +1 attack aura for your mechs. Finally, Replicating Manus carries on the magnetic theme, but also gives you a backup plan, leaving 3 1/1 microbots with his Death Rattle to keep the magnetic dream alive. Mech Paladin shows that with a little elbow grease and giant robots on your side, you too can win games. Want to invest more into Mech Paladin? Your best bet would be to look at the infamous magnetic duo themselves, Ziliax and Snip Snap. It's just overall great to have more opportunities to buff up your mechs. The odd one out here, Micro Mummy's just another solid sticky mech, with its reborn text essentially being a death rattle that summons a 1/1 copy of itself, while buffing our other friendly mechs at the end of their turn. Even ancient mechs want to lend a helping hand too. Finally, we have a special treat for all of you wanting to use that free Galakrond that you got. We have Galakrond Zoo Warlock at 1440 dust. You might be saying, wait, why do you have a legendary in the deck? Since everyone got Galakrond for free, I think it's fair to showcase him in a deck. Note that you should have also gotten 2 Shield of Galakronds for free as well. So, Zoo Warlock is generally a low mana curve Warlock deck that looks to take early control of the board with a plethora of cheap minions. Galakrond takes this to the next level by helping us swarm the board even more. We'll get to that bit in a sec, but once we have wide boards, we can use buffs like Grim Rally to really bring the pain to our opponents. So how does Galakrond work? By including him in your deck, every time you play a card with the invoke text, such as Devoted Maniac, you'll activate his hero power, summoning 2 1/1 imps. If you happen to invoke Galakrond 4 times, you'll upgrade him to his final form, getting you a nifty 5/2 weapon while also summoning you 4 random demons. Sometimes you might get something awesome like Fell Lord Betrug. Other times you might get something wimpy like a Blood Imp. If you too want to open up your own menagerie of scarabs, imps, and demons, Galakrond Zoo might be right up your alley. Finally, how can we upgrade the deck? Zoo really likes having ways to take advantage of having a lot of minions on the board. Sea Giant gets really cheap and will often be played as a 2 mana or 3 mana 8/8, not too shabby. You can also add more Galakrond support. Veiled Worshipper is an invoke payoff card. If you've invoked at least twice, you get to draw 3 cards on top of getting a 5/4 for only 4 mana. That's pretty sweet. Then you got the big Tauren himself, Kronk's Dragonhoof, which can help you fetch Galakrond, or if you've already played your Galakrond, you get the option to choose from 4 different devastations, such as summoning an 8/8 with Taunt, or dealing 5 damage to all enemy minions. You could say that's quite devastating. Hope you guys enjoyed this collection of budget decks for the standard format. I had a ton of fun seeing what you could play in standard with only a smidgen of dust available. If you're interested in getting your feet wet in the wild format, I've also created a similar video but with wild deck lists for the Descent of Dragons expansion. If you feel like this video was helpful, please show your support by subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment. I do my best to upload guides and content for Hearthstone and other card games. As always, I wish you all the best of luck on the Hearthstone ladder and in life. Until next time, peace.